Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of your average esports podcast. My name is Skim. I am once again, of course, joined by Steven. This is a two-man show after all, so we're never going to leave. How's it going, Steven?
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right. This week is a little bit light in terms of discussion topics. In Dota especially, of course, there are a lot of the qualifiers already over. I guess we could talk a little bit about those, but let's divert our attention, of course, to the general esports news first. Again, not a lot in esports, but I think we've started to jam in pretty much all the Overwatch news into our general esports section. And one of the topics this week about Overwatch is, of course, the very recently announced rebranding of the NVS Dallas slot. So NVS is owner of the Dallas slot in the Overwatch League, and of course, as every Overwatch team, they had to find a new brand, had to rebrand. It can't be NVS Dallas, no, it had to be something else. And they come up with an interesting name. I think it makes sense because of their sponsor or because of their investments. They are related to like an oil company or something.
Yeah,
but they're called
an oil
Dallas,
magnate.
Yeah, they're called Dallas Fuel. What do you think of the name, Dallas Fuel?
I think it's okay, but it's like, I don't know, it just feels really cliche, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, Texas is known for oil.
Yeah.
They name themselves after, they're sponsored by oil. Now they have a team called Dallas Fuel. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I prefer Envious just because that has more history to it. But obviously they can't use that because the sports orgs are like, no, that's not fair. How dare you?
See, my biggest worry with all these teams is that there's going to be multiple teams that are going to name themselves in a way that is going to be reminiscent of like whoever the investment, like whoever is investing into it is basically going to have like a stake in the name, right? That it could be, we're going to be the, I don't know. Actually, I can't think of an example right now. Like the
Liquid Magics.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Something along those lines. And I just fear that this is going to be a trend because I think it actually sucks. Like,
yeah,
I think in esports in general, we've seen that like brands entering the scene and then wanting to be a name sponsor. I don't know if you remember, but both Fnatic and Evil Geniuses used to be sponsored by Raid Call, so they would always have to go by EG Raid Call or Fnatic RC or whatever. And
you should. Did you ever watch StarCraft 2 back then?
I did not.
In Korea, they had this. They had to say the entire thing, right? But the best part was because they couldn't pronounce it right. It kept coming out as like Rape Call or something.
Right. That definitely was one of the nicknames for it as well because but yeah. It is. I think in esports at least it has always been very stupid, and I wish it would have been something. I mean, if they're already doing the whole franchising thing, I wish it would have been something more akin to what we have in the NFL, right? Something maybe annual
actually,
or at least game related, right?
Yeah, basically you bring up a good point in the sense that we don't know how long this oil magnet's going to keep investing into Envious. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense just from a long-term point of view to name your brand after some sponsor that may not even be there a year from now. So in that sense, it is really weird. And on the other hand, like, I don't really have that much respect for esports teams like logos or like naming in general. Like, you know, in Overwatch, one of the current contender teams is basically a corn dog, right? So I was like, yeah, I mean the standards are pretty fucking low. There's also really like low. They were laser kittens for a while. So I guess just in that particular space, Fuel is technically a step up.
I'm afraid so.
And shoutouts to NRG because I'm pretty sure they have to change their name too. But the reason that's great for NRG is because they're so bad at everything else that a name change will actually elevate them so that people kind of forget how terrible they were at everything else.
Do you remember the small scandal where they basically asked fans to redesign their new logo?
Yeah, I remember that. That was stupid.
Basically, the reward was, your logo was got to be chosen. That was the only reward, really.
Thanks for doing our work.
Yeah.
God damn it, NRG.
Unpaid work. It's not like we have a lot of money, no.
It's not like we were rolling in the millions. Like, come on, man. Come on.
I will say though that I very much like the Dallas Fuel logo. I'm going to put it up on the thingy, on the overlay. But I actually like the logo a lot.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I can't say that about a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Like, The corn dog one was pretty ridiculous. The laser kittens one was equally stupid.
Well, there was all kinds of things wrong with laser kittens, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah, Dallas Fuel. So I like the logo, and they have a skin going with it. I think. Like the blue,
It's like a blue skin or
yeah,
something.
it's I like this. I like this. I mean, having in general having like skins that are.
I mean, I myself would have gone with something like Captain Pollution or whatever it was from that old Captain Planet show. But I feel like that'd be too on the nose.
That'd be good. I also realized that I have the topic from the old show. It says roster shuffled CS:GO. No, that's not what this is about. Anyway, Dallas Fuel. Yeah, interesting name. Again, I mean, I guess they've now set the bar, even if they've set it really very low, but they've set the bar for all the other teams, pretty much. Everybody else is going to be competing with that. I know that Cloud9 had this sort of like crowdfunding, a crowd-sourced attempt
Name?
where they basically asked everybody to submit names.
And then it ended up being Kappa or something. Is that how it went?
I bet that's how it's going to end. I don't think anybody has announced their new name yet, right? I think it's only Dallas.
This is the first one.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of anybody else.
Honestly, I'm really curious about what this is going to yield.
I do hope like somebody becomes like super narcissistic and like names the team after themselves. Like what if like the Boston group named themselves the Hucks or some shit?
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Just go for it, dude.
Yeah, might as well.
All right. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just some random Overwatch League news. Overwatch League is still 2 months out. Starts 6th of December, 12th.
It starts at the end. Yeah, it starts in December. It's kind of weird because it's supposed to start 4 months ago, 5 months ago, beginning of Q3.
Yes.
Does nobody remember this? At the same time, all right. I guess if you want, you can talk about like the entire the entire like Overwatch Reddit trying to flame Thorin, but that's basically a more journalistic problem.
That was because of the thing that he did, right? The piece that he did about, or the video that he did about
the tryouts.
About the tryouts, yeah.
Yeah, turned out to be true. So.
Do you want to quickly elaborate on that?
Basically, Thorin. Basically, they're. All right. I'll start with this general broad piece of concept for those who aren't in the esports industry. There's something known as. Actually, I have to even go back further. It's like the drug industry where like basically snitches get stitches. Like this is the this is the concept that has ruled the world since time immemorial, and it has passed on into esports culture. So apparently there's this terrible practice going on around where a few teams, I'm not actually sure how many, we at least know there's confirmation of one, there could be a lot more, where basically they have these players in contract, and the reason they had these players in contract was because they believed they could get into the Overwatch League, but they couldn't. Either they couldn't raise the funds, or Blizzard was like fuck you, or Cloud9 was like fuck you to Fnatic, something along those lines. So one of those things happened, and then now they're stuck with a bunch of players who don't have any kind of ROI, and at the same time, we don't really know how the open circuit will work for Overwatch, just because Blizzard themselves have been so stringent upon like certain requirements. Like I've actually heard some really like dark things in regards to tournament orgs trying to run Overwatch tournaments. Like they were basically trying to control everything, even for like super small ones. And it got to the point where like it was so distasteful to some of these tournament orgs. I won't name them, but I in fact heard about it where they're like, no, we're not going to run it. It's not even worth it. It's not even worth our time.
I mean, yeah,
like, nobody else does this.
You can see it by the amount of Overwatch tournaments that we've had.
Yeah, so basically, just look at the results. How many international lands have there been for Overwatch? Despite the fact that there's been like an year and a half of time they could have run the lands. So basically, that's what happened there. And so now imagine you're one of these orgs. You didn't get into Overwatch League. You don't really know the future of the open circuit. And you have these teams these players on contract, and you have to find some way to get investment on them. And since some of them are good, they're technically trying to like charge tryout fees for their players to go onto these Overwatch teams, and that's pretty shady, especially because like according to Thorin, some of them, or I think all of them, all the ones that were involved didn't tell their players that this was happening. Yeah. So they're just being passed off by the Overwatch League tournaments. And then this is like the second time, or was it third time? This is like the third journalistic Thorn video about Overwatch. One of them was about TSM, the other one was about NRG, and basically, I'm not sure why, but the Overwatch subreddit's like super critical of him. I'm not sure, like super critical in a bad way. Like,
Yeah, I know.
or like they're not really bringing up arguments. They're just like emotionally reacting. Like, man, that Thorn, he has an agenda against Overwatch because his best friend works there. Like one of his best friends works there. He wants it to fail. It's like, what's going on? Like,
It certainly doesn't help that. What was it? Was it the video game attorney or whatever? Like the
going out of his way to try to blame Thorn. Yes.
Yeah, as well.
Or like what the hell is this? I don't even understand what the hell that guy's doing. But whatever.
It's interesting because I can understand if people have a certain opinion of Thorin, but I feel like his track record and like his work should speak for itself. That
Yeah, pretty much.
the same with Richard Lewis. I mean, you can have an opinion of them as as low as you want it to be, but you can't just have that affect your opinion on their work, because ultimately they're still journalists and they're providing a lot of value to esports. They're providing a lot of value that is unmatched, pretty much across all scenes, or close to be unmatched. But I don't know. It's very sad watching it. Really, it's very sad.
And then the other bit you could talk about Overwatch is the fact that apparently, um, like I haven't followed Overwatch myself, but I keep hearing these rumors that the best players in Overwatch are not going to be in the league or something. And then you just look at over at Apex, you're like, oh yeah, look, all these like rising Korean teams are better than Lunatic High now. It's like, oh shit. So that's sort of funny too.
Well, it doesn't help that it's such a close circuit, right? It
Yeah.
makes it very difficult to really have like a, how should I put it? Like in Dota, for example, in Dota, pretty much you can always agree that the best team is inevitably always going to be at the top at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Or the
That's
best
because of,
or
like,
the best players. They're going to be at the top at least at some point, right?
yeah,
But
like it's kind of weird, right? Because if you just look at the way the Overwatch League is structured, and I think there's a decent chance that the best team's going to be coming out of Apex, or the technically I guess you call it the open circuit rather than the Overwatch League, which doesn't look good for the league. But I mean, it's not like they can do much about it because they can't predict who are going to be the next six best players coming out of Korea, unless they like literally buy them all. And then even if you buy them all, you might have like you don't follow League of Legends, but you might have like a coup tiger situation where all of a sudden like five guys, like four of them were like trashers who thought everybody was dead, rise up to the top and are actually the best in the world. Like Korea is like weird like that. There's an endless fucking like pool in there where you can draw out players.
hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, my headset
Yeah.
just dropped out for a second. Can you
Yeah.
repeat the last sentence or two?
All right, so in League of Legends, right? So this is kind of related to Overwatch, but basically there was this entire immigration from the Koreans, like the top like 20, actually it was like the top 50 players or so, like a majority of them left Korea to get rich either in China or NA or EU.
Right.
And then what happened was you think, oh, this must surely mean that the rest of the world is going to catch up because they just stole all the top talent. No, actually, what happened was five guys named the Coup Tigers. Only one of them was like really great. The other four were basically unknowns or trashers or known as garbage players. Before then, rose to the top and then became the best or second best team in the world, depending on how you look at it. So it was like, fucking Korea is super fucking deep.
Yep.
Like,
Really
it's not really Overwatch. It's not really the team's fault or Blizzard's fault, but the fact of the matter is, like, Korea is such that you can never have the best team in Overwatch League because Korea will create a better one. Like, no matter how many people you take.
That's why I think it's so. It's not weird because I understand why, of course, Blizzard is doing it, but having this Overwatch League in itself is already in like only two Korean spots.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's just I don't know.
I guess it could be more depending on who signs who, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. But yeah. Anyway, I guess that is pretty much it for the Overwatch League or Overwatch portion of this show, and we can move on to something that is sort of directly affecting you, I suppose.
Yeah.
The Slingshot Patreon. Just to actually, if you can also, of course, explain that one. But you guys
All right.
have now opened a Patreon, so Want to tell us why and how people can get involved?
All right. So basically, the reason this Patreon exists is because esports journalism, or I guess journalism in general, is going down the hole. If you just want to look worldwide, and there's a lot of reasons for this, but basically the current model, doesn't make sense because here's the thing about journalism. It will never be profitable. It's more of a public service than it is a service where you get money from.
Right.
And the reason it can never be profitable is because it needs that level of objectivity. I'm not exactly sure, but you can't have too many influences on the journalistic work ethic, or you're going to get weird shit. Like, just look at the North American election. If you want, there's a lot of weird shit going on, right? If you dig deeper, it gets weirder. So that's generally the reason why you don't want to be paid by big sponsors or advertisers if you can, but that's the only technically sustainable way to do it. So the idea is basically similar to the rising trend of community crowdsourcing, I guess.
Yeah.
Like Bitcoin, the Valve, the Dota 2 majors, the CS:GO majors, stuff like this. And basically the idea is they want to diversify their funds so that they can try to keep it as sustainable as long as they can. And that's the basic idea. And the reason for this is you can try to go back through the years. I'm not sure how many have failed, but there have been a shitload of esports journalistic sites that have failed because they've never understood this. So either one of two things happened: they ran out of business, or they sold out and then lost all their quality.
I mean, we could name probably 100 websites. I mean, if we
there are so many. There are so many.
Obviously, the most prominent examples, On Gamers, for example. Yeah, they had investment, but they burned through all their money very quickly. And then, of course, the whole Reddit thing happened, and then there was no point in actually running the website anymore. On top of a bunch of other things, of course. The Score, they pumped in a shit ton of money in the beginning, and now they're cutting, or now they started cutting back a year ago because they realized, hey, actually, you know what, throwing money at everything isn't actually the solution.
IPL, IGN did that. Yeah. Yahoo did that. There's a bunch of these people who do it, but it's not technically sustainable. So I've never known why they kept doing it. This is also one of the reasons why I was never angry or outraged that Team Liquid never paid me for however many years it was, because you have to understand the situation. You have to understand the situations these businesses are in, and it's not even Team Liquid is an actual journalist site. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why so many websites rely on volunteer work, right? Because, or at least employ a lot of volunteers, because, I mean, I say employ even though they obviously don't pay them. But it's just, I mean, that's the whole journalism, as you said, it's a problem in journalism in general, or even content creation to a degree, because ultimately there's not a lot, there's not a good way for content creators to monetize their content without having advertisers backing them. And in journalism especially, you obviously don't want whatever piece you have in front of you to be, oh, by the way, this is actually sponsored by the team that we're actually writing about, right?
ESF.
ESF.
Right?
ES4, for example, Cybersports, they are owned by ES4s and thus also owned by SK, Navi, and Virtus.pro, and sure, it gives them access to immediate news regarding those teams, but at the same time, every time they do report about them, it feels very ethically questionable.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing: when I was writing for Team Liquid, I actually had zero contact with any of the Liquid staff or the Liquid players, or a majority of them. I could name a handful of people I knew. Technically, I had a direct line, but I never used it. I felt that was too weird. But the point of it is, everybody assumed I was biased towards Team Liquid, when in fact Tasia was just a fucking god at the time. But the whole point of that is that even if there is a clear delineation between the two, the fact is just from the outside appearance, it's going to look like you're being biased, or it's going to look like you can't really trust whatever this person is writing about or saying. Yeah. So, and even then, it's not like I pushed the line. I never said something like "Hero is trash," Liquid Hero is trash, and it's not because it just didn't happen. There was no reason to write that piece. But if I ever had to write a piece like that, I don't know if Nazgul would come in and was you need to tone this down a little bit. I don't know if he would have said that or not.
Yeah, so. You don't know. But the thing is, just being in that situation is already very That's
It's
just
very like weird, right?
yeah, it's just not
It's
a
very
situation you want to
ambiguous.
be in as a content creator, as a journalist, especially. There are other ways to do this, of course. I mean, aside from doing like the crowdfunding thing, there's of course, oh my god, I forgot the term. Native advertising, where you
Yeah.
basically, and I've had this idea a couple of times. I think the most basic one I can think of is, since we're gamers, what if either Slingshot or of course Dota Buff or whatever website just does a piece on gaming headsets. You do a piece on gaming headsets and maybe review them, or just generally like how do gaming headsets impact your gaming performances, and then, oh, by the way, this piece was sponsored by SteelSeries whatever, or Razer or whatever.
Yeah, that's I think that's fine, but it's always like a bit dangerous, isn't it?
I think it's fine, but yeah, it's also very dangerous, and it's also, especially for journalistic websites, it doesn't. There's not a lot of room to do native advertising, because a lot of the pieces I mean, just look at what Slingshot does in terms of like content, right? There's no
Yeah.
way you could ever find any sort of advertiser that would actually benefit from advertising there,
Hmm.
like advertising one piece directly. I mean, so this is. I don't know. I like the idea of having a Patreon. I think Patreon is definitely one of the sort of best tools to have in the content creation space worldwide. It creates like a direct line between the supporters and the people that do create the content. But at the same time, and at the same time, I think it's also difficult to motivate people to pay Patreon. I mean, if all of your readers, I'm not sure how many
Hmm.
readers you guys have on average, but if all of your readers
Yeah, I don't
just
know either.
if all of them actually just supported you guys with $1 a month, I'm sure you would meet your goal easily, right?
Hmm. Whatever
And
that goal is,
yeah,
I'm not sure either.
whatever that goal is, I think it's at like 20K. So I mean,
Okay.
I assume that you have at least 20K viewers. I think that's very
Hmm.
reasonable. But at the end of the day, though, it's. I mean, I know for me personally, when I was young, never felt like paying for anything. It's like, well,
Yeah.
if this is for free, why should I pay for it? I've changed a lot over
Hmm.
the years, especially relying on a lot of like work like this. I've come to appreciate these kind of things, where paying for content is actually appropriate. It actually makes sense.
Yeah. Like basically, Steam had to trick the world. If you think about it that way, Steam tricked the world because we didn't realize what Steam was doing. We didn't realize what the iTunes was doing. But basically, you're paying for convenience,
Yes.
and it's like hard. It's hard to replicate that idea into anything else.
Yes.
So but it's a very like important idea because that's the best. I think that's the best way to monetize this like generation, just because convenience is worth paying for right now.
Yes. Same with Netflix, of course.
Yeah. Hmm.
Everybody wants to be the Netflix of any area
Anything.
right now. Yeah. I hear we want to be the Netflix of so often. We want to be the next Netflix of sports. We want to be the Netflix of porn. Actually, I guess.
Netflix of anime, but now Netflix is the Netflix of anime.
Yes, exactly. Now Netflix is the Netflix of anime. It's difficult for sure, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I love this. But I wonder, how do you feel about content behind a paywall? So I know that all of your guys' content is still for free, but
Yeah.
how do you personally feel about content behind a paywall? Because that is the solution that a lot of established newspapers or journalistic hubs basically do it, right? I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that all of the Times have at least some sort of like paywall. I know that in Germany a lot of the newspapers have paywalls where you can get extra content. How do you feel about it?
I don't really care personally because I only write for myself technically, so I'm like super egotistical that way. But if you talk to a normal like writer or a normal journalist, the reason they do this is like it could just be for like the integrity. Like there are people like that, DK, Thorin, Richard Lewis, Wolf. Like there are plenty of like people who like do investigative journalism because they want to prove they want to like save something like the integrity of the game or whatever it happens to be, right? And for like people like that, I don't think Slingshot will do this, but I'm not sure. Or you basically can't paywall that stuff.
No, you
So
can't.
what would be paywall to be my stuff? I think, right? Like stuff that doesn't necessarily have to do with like
Commentary,
integrity.
opinion pieces. Yeah, it's like
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure what they do with that, but for people not me, I imagine they'd be more annoyed because like the reason you're writing this is like because you're getting paid, but also because you want some kind of level of recognition for your work, and that's always been like a weird like treadstone because if you don't do this, you're not gonna get paid, but if you do this, people aren't gonna recognize your work as much. So I'm
Fair
not
enough.
exactly sure where I land on that. I personally don't care. Like I said, I'm super egotistical, but but that's always going to be a problem, especially like because I worked at I won't say worked, but I volunteered at Team Liquid for a long time, and there's this thing called like the pen curse and the blue pen curse. And what I call the blue pen curse is what would happen is when you volunteered enough for Team Liquid and you wrote enough pieces, you would get this blue pen icon, and then every time a new writer got a new blue pen icon, they quit because that was like as much recognition as you could get maximum
Right.
from that
Right.
position. And it's not like they're getting paid, so there's no reason to continue from their perspective. They're like, oh,
Right.
we did enough, right? So basically, it's a similar idea because I think that idea is like permeates through everybody to a certain extent, where you want to be like recognized for whatever you do.
But what
So
if,
that's like a problem.
theoretically speaking, right? Theoretically speaking, what if you had the magnitude and the following and perhaps even the both the fame and infamy of a person like Thorin, right?
Hmm.
I know that a lot of his investigative pieces wouldn't be behind paywall, but what if he does a lot of commentary, he does a lot of
Yeah.
opinion pieces. What if that was behind a paywall? I mean, he's already reached a certain status, and pretty much everybody knows him anyway. Do you think that in general, obviously not specific for him, but do you think a person like him in that position would they benefit from a paywall? Or do you think that, I mean, you as a consumer, I mean, he watches stuff as well, of course, but you as a
Hmm.
consumer, would you pay for it, like X amount,
I'm,
even if it's like $1 a month?
yeah, I mean, I pay for it. I pay for it as by the numbers podcast, like 10 or something.
Yeah.
But that's because that's because I have like very different ideas and very different morals from normal people. Like it's to the point where like I can't really it's to the point where I'm not sure I could be called human at times, but that's like a different entire
That's a
thing,
different,
right? That's a
yeah.
different entire thing. But so I have to put myself in the mindset of a normal person. I don't think a normal person would do that, and that's the question here. Like I don't think Slingshot will ever get to well, like in the foreseeable future. I'm like talking 1 to 2 years down the line. I don't think it'll ever build an audience that large where it can profitably it could simultaneously put up a paywall for like a certain amount of content while continually growing. Because I think when you're smaller, you need to grow your base first before you can paywall it off, right? Because I feel
agree.
like you need a certain amount of play. I guess in esports terms, like you need a certain amount of players before you have an esport. If you don't have the players, then that thing's gonna die really fast. Like that stupid IPL gun game that like died instantly. I
Yeah.
forget what it was,
I don't know
but
either, but
but basically like they gave $1 million to some old Quake player, and then they took it and then they left. Like
yeah.
that's basically what happened, and that's basically where I think the problem is with the paywall thing. Like, what do you think about it? You think it's like, would you pay for it?
Yeah, if it's content I read anyway, or if it's content I wanted to read, I definitely would pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anything, I would probably enjoy a model like that more so than a Patreon model, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I am supporting a couple of Patrons. I'm gonna support the Slingshot Patreon. I've forgotten until now. I'm supporting a couple of Patrons, but that's mostly because of, I don't know. I think it's just a sort of like a statement kind of thing. Just like what, pledge like $1 every month or so. It's like a feel good thing for me more so than actually trying to help them.
Yeah.
But I also have like a lot of like sort of like premium subscriptions of like other sort of like things. I have a premium Spotify subscription, for example, because I don't know. I think if you use a service a lot, I think it's worth paying for it. But I obviously know that a lot of people don't feel that way, and I know a lot of people, if they could somehow pirate Netflix, they would still do it.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I guess we're just in that kind of world, in that kind of society right now, where there is this kind of mindset, and it's difficult because, I mean, we're discussing about it, but even big organizations that have lasted for like a couple of decades have not been able to figure out how to transition into the 21st century with a sustainable business model in the journalistic space, because newspapers are not going to be profitable anymore, and they have to do something in the digital space, but they haven't figured out yet how to properly monetize the digital market. A lot of big organizations are still struggling with that. So I feel like, yeah, I personally think that, paywall, and maybe even paywall in addition to the Patreon, maybe we're having that combined. Maybe people that pledge like a $5 amount per month get like access to special content, or I mean, I guess people already get sort of special content. I know you're doing an AMA later in Discord, or have already done it. I don't know.
Basically, it just runs for 24 hours until I go to sleep.
All right.
So anybody can ask me anything, but I have no clue what they're going to ask. So
Looking forward to it. But yeah, I don't know. I think I would. I mean, we have Dota Buff. We've considered a paywall. We might still do it for certain content, but it has to be right, of course, and it's not easy to do it really, because you don't want to alienate your audience either. Of course, even if you have established an audience, it's difficult to bring the paywall in, because then suddenly everybody's going to feel backstabbed, right?
Yeah, because here's like a analogy for you. Back in StarCraft 2, MLG saw this coming like years before it happened, that in order for StarCraft 2 to sustain itself, it needed to monetize the hardcore audience, and they believed they could do it with a paywall. And it didn't work, obviously, because the StarCraft 2 audience wasn't willing to pay at the time. But if you just look retroactively at the way the StarCraft 2 tournament circuit slowly declined over time, yeah, part of it is because of WCS, part of it is because of Blizzard, part of it is because of like the declining interest in the game. Like, there's only a lot, as for a majority of games that aren't like hardcore. Like, StarCraft 2 is technically hardcore, but it was more of newer compared to like the lineage of like Dota to Dota 2 or Counter-Strike onwards. But for StarCraft 2, like, they couldn't sustain it, and like people got interested in other things, which is inevitable for a majority of games. But if you just look retroactively, MLG was right, and they saw like the decline of the Dota 2 circuit coming. But if they had been able to convince the StarCraft 2 market to buy into that, maybe they'd still have a lot more tournaments. That's my take on it, but I'm not exactly sure, because there's a lot of stuff behind it. But it's similar to the journalistic part. Like, you have to find a way to make it sustainable, because it's not like I don't actually think it's possible to make a profit off of journalism right now, not in like a true sense, because like I said, there's so many problems specifically with journalism as to why you can't do or why you shouldn't do that. But at the same time, you still need the money to run the fucking thing. So it's a weird place.
It is a very weird place. But I appreciate the fact that Slingshot is trying to do something. I think this is a good idea. Again, it's already 36 patrons.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that this is going to work out for you guys. I think you guys do great content. I should probably bookmark Slingshot at some point. But yeah, that is just, I just wanted to talk about it because, of course, you and I, we are somewhat close to this sort of topic. I mean, you obviously working for Patreon, but I also, as a writer and content creator in general. But that brings us already to the end of the esports section and into the Dota section. Let me just quickly do this, and then this, the Dota section, and we can pretty much start with. Let me see. Let's start with Swindles, shall we?
Yeah,
I know you enjoy talking about Swindles, or Kyle as he's now known.
I always call him Swindles. He will never be a Kyle to me.
Well, they finally overcome the Meepo curse. So after about a year of being terrorized by Meepo picks, pretty much, in certain matchups, first against Execration, then against Digital Chaos, and now against both Digital Chaos and Abed, who was in Execration, right? It's basically combining those two factors.
Yep.
He's now overcome the Meepo curse and beaten Meepo. And I think it actually allowed him to qualify for the minor. I think that was actually the game or the match.
Yeah, it was like one of the games.
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure if he qualified from that. He might. I know he beat.
It might have been
to qualify for something else.
It might have been the semifinals. It might have been
semifinals. Okay, yeah, because that makes more sense. But yeah, basically, I think I always put this as a caveat for like the last year. I only believe in Swindles and by
they qualified
by
off
extension.
Of it. They qualified off of it.
Okay, they qualified off it. Okay, yeah. I'll only believe in Swindles and Complexity by extension if at some point Swindles learns to ban Meepo. Never happened. I should point that out. It never happened until now.
Never.
And they didn't even ban it. They just beat it. So at this point, you can start believing in this team a little bit. I still don't know how good they'll be on LAN or just in general how good they will be overall because, like I said, I haven't seen Chessie and Limp forever, and I'm still like wary of a guy who decided to go back to NIP and Alliance. Like I'm always wary of somebody whose decision making is like that. Like, come on, man. It's not 2012. It's not 2012 anymore. Let it go. Let it go. But beyond that, the NA region in general has been fucking crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, all over the place. I think it's probably the most competitive one right now because I think there's been 4 qualifiers. You know, the Summit, Starletter, Perfect World, PGL. I guess 5 now with Dota Pit are currently running. Well, actually, I think it already finished as well. Either way, you know, with these 5 qualifiers, I think there were like 4 different teams qualifying for those events as well. That's absolutely nuts. Whereas in Europe, you have secret qualifying for everything. I guess in China, there's also a little bit of a back and forth between a couple of teams. SEA definitely dominated by what's that face, Mineski, and then you have SG Esports also being pretty dominant in
South America.
So NA definitely all over the place. But just to come back to complexity, I totally agree with you. I definitely think they definitely had to shake off the whole Meepo thing at some point. Like I think you could tell in every sort of matchup against a Meepo team, there was like always this Meepo thing hovering over them. But they're obviously looking pretty strong right now. Of course, LAN is a completely different caliber, but they could. I don't know. I think this might just be the best complexity lineup we've seen yet.
Perhaps, really? You think it's the best one yet?
Yes, this might legitimately be better than. I mean, I'm not gonna overhype it because obviously, you know, the best one was probably the one, or definitely was the one with Fly and Moonmeter that made the upper bracket of TI 5.
Yeah, I thought that one was pretty good.
That one's pretty good, but this one looks very convincing. Like, they legitimately set the meta for the region. Like, a lot of teams had to copy their draft, and a lot of teams started picking the stuff against complexity because they couldn't ban all the heroes. Legitimately, they have so many heroes that people need to ban that. I don't know. Complexity looks really strong, but of course, with a new patch around the corner as well, it's going to be difficult to call who's really going to be good in the long run, right?
Yeah, like that's always the thing with Dota specifically. The patch can change a lot of things. So we'll have to see. I will say I'm more impressed by complexity than I have been in a long time. So there's that going for them, and I think the land they're going to should be good for them because I don't think anybody's out of reach except for the top 2 teams there.
Yeah, it sucks a little bit that it's in China because Chinese lands are always a bit weird because of traveling and the jet lag. You know. It makes
as Eternal Enemy puts it, something terrible always happens whenever I go to China.
I believe they also made it. Yeah, they also qualified for Starletter, of course. Yeah, so Starletter should be pretty nice. Starletter is I think Starletter is in terms of event quality has always been one of the better ones in the West at least. So this should be pretty good. And like you said, a lot of the teams that are there are very manageable. You know, obviously it's Liquid, Newbie, the TI finalists that are there. That's pretty big, but. You know, the other ones, Vici Gaming, Mineski,
I could see Complexity legitimately beating every other team except those 2.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, though.
They perhaps even beat Newbie, to be honest. I mean, this is
definitely depends on where they meet Newbie.
Yeah, true. Depending on where they meet Newbie will beat themselves. But you know, there's always this. You know, there's the first literally the first event of the year, the first event of the season. Teams are going to be very much, you know, in the rhythm, whereas Liquid and Newbie legitimately have not played a game since TI. So this is going to be interesting for sure.
Well, I don't think Liquid will have a problem. I think there's too much skill in that team right now.
For sure. They even have 4 9K players now. Mind Control now reached 9K MMR as well.
That's some bullshit.
The only non-9K MMR player is Kuroki on that team.
Yeah, but you need a leader, so there you go.
It's absolutely a great leader. Insane. This could be the first team with 5 9K MMR players if Kuroki just, you know...
Oh, I got a question for you. This is like divergent, but I got to ask. Do you think Kuroki, all time now, Kuroki is a better leader than Puppy?
Let me see.
Just in Dota 2. I'm not counting Dota 1.
Yeah, just in Dota 2?
Yeah. Because I feel like that's
Probably. I honestly think so because I think Kuroki has achieved more with worse players than Puppy has.
yeah, that's what I think too. It's kind of strange, right?
Because if you look
Because
at if you look at Mousesports before Kuroki joined Navi, like he literally got those players onto like a top level, and once he left, they were like in shambles. Like he literally turned what was his name, Alex, into like uh
people don't even know who Alex is
exactly
anymore, man.
into like a respectable support player. And after he left, everyone was like, "Wait, this guy actually sucks. Yeah, he's really bad." And then he vanished.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Kuroki has done definitely a lot with teams that are or with players that are not as established as. I'm not. Look, this is obviously because Puppy as a player generally has always played with people that are really good. I mean, people are just naturally drawn to him because he's a strong leader, and he definitely has also shaped a lot of like youngsters into capable people. Weeha, for example, was a top tier mid laner when he was playing for Secret and under Puppy, but Kuroki I think has always been praised as sort of also like a second leader in teams. So I don't know. It's difficult to call right now because obviously TI is still fresh in our heads, but I think I would tend towards Kuroki for now. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking Kuroki should be considered better just because both Puppy and Kuroki have been in like similar spots for the last 2 years, where they're not necessarily getting all the best players except for like Puppy early on with like Eternal Envy and the Wii and the Misery stack. But beyond that, like he hasn't really gotten like the prime talent, so to speak. But same thing can be said of Kuroki, and Kuroki like he was able to keep his roster together and it's gone stronger over the years.
Yeah.
Even though like they switch people out and he got Miracle and stuff, but
If anything,
like I feel like
yeah.
at this point he's like really legitimately like he might be a top 3 captain ever. I still think Xiaowei and PPD are better, but that's like a different like discussion.
If anything, the current roster is like the perfect example because, and I keep making this point because I think it hasn't been highlighted enough. I'm glad that Kuroki mentioned it during the True Side, I think, or no, it wasn't the True Side. It was the Players Tribune.
Players Tribune,
where you mentioned basically when he took on the players, everybody was a no name except for Fata. Everybody was a no name. Goddamn, Matuma Man was like playing in 4 Sea Captains and an Anchor or something. What was it? Jarex at the time. I guess he was with MVP Hot 6, but that was also
he was like a great player there, but nobody recognized him for how good he really was.
Exactly, and even before MVP Hot 6, he was on a no name team, or like he was on basically no team.
Yeah, he was like nowhere.
Yeah. What was it? Mind Control also out of nowhere. It was like dabbling in tier 2 CIS and Europe, and I don't know. He definitely took. I mean, yeah, sure, he got Miracle the star player, but he also formed this team into a star team.
Yeah, and like even without the Miracle, he was without the Miracle before that, he was like top 2 everywhere for a long time. So I thought that's why I was just asking because I think at this point you can legitimately say Kuroki is a better all-time like leader than Puppy was in Dota 2. So.
But this is, if anything, this is going to make the next season all the more interesting because we're going to see a lot more clashes between these captains and between these players, especially now that, the Salt King has returned in the form of PPD. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to use this as a segue to the next topic because when we've talked about Kyle and complexity in the beginning, we kind of drifted apart, but we came back to PPD and Optic Gaming. So the Green Wall has entered Dota 2.
Yep, the Green Wall is here, and it is led by the man who will make it great again, PPD.
Do you think PPD still bleeds blue inside, or is he all green now?
Listen, man, you see that interview with Thorin, the first one, like the Reflections one, where like he asks, so what drives you now, PPD? Money. I think he bleeds green now, but not the optic green, just the money green.
It's just the money green.
Those dead presidents, as it were. That's what he bleeds. But yeah, what do you think about the Dire or Optic Gaming? I guess
it's a good team for sure. They did qualify for the Summit, and I cannot highlight this enough. I think PPD has managed to elevate PyCat to the level that PyCat belongs to. PyCat has for years never been competing in a really true top team for a long time because there's issues supposedly with his personality and perhaps even with his ego, but I think it's undeniable that he has a lot of skill. LGD Int, he was one of the best carries at the time. Pretty much always whenever he steps up, it's because you can see his skill, but then the team starts falling apart because there's interpersonal issues. I feel like with this team, it's not going to happen because as long as everybody just keeps following PPD, shit's gonna be fine.
Follow the leader, like bend your knee to the king,
Yes.
as it were, right? Like that's basically why I was surprised when like PPD revealed that him playing for that wanted stack when it was like his off time, like his part-time job, right? Like not even his job, like his part-time hobby, and like he goes to TI and like, I don't know if you're that good anymore because that wanted thing didn't work out. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? He was literally doing this in his off hours, and he almost beat DC. Actually, did beat DC in a best of 3. Almost beat them again. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. This guy is. I still think this guy is. It's like one of the weird things about his career was there was no reason for him to retire last year because he was still at the peak of his career.
Well,
like in terms, we know about the Sumail thing, but I mean, like if he could have gone to another team or something. But like basically, just in terms of his skill and his leadership, I don't think there was a reason for him to. Obviously, there are like interpersonal issues as to why he did. But yeah, I think PPD will be a force to be reckoned with as time goes on, and so will this team.
I think when it comes to PPD and like his retirement, I think one of the issues that he personally saw was, when you go from a top team, like he literally just placed third at TI with like a month preparation because they had to even go through the open qualifier because they formed very shortly before TI even began, right? They went into NA Major with a completely different lineup. They kicked AUI and kicked Bulba, whatever. And then they formed a new team and they immediately placed top 3. And then people tell you, hey, actually, we don't really want to play with you because we prefer playing with Sumail or whatever, or we hate you or whatever. I think at that time you just think to yourself, well, yeah, screw those guys. But at the same time, he literally cannot find a team that's going to make him better or that's going to put him at least at the same space. I think the time was really rough for Dota because the way the reshuffles worked. And I'm not sure when, of course, he got the message that the team didn't want to play with him anymore. But it was just really difficult because a lot of teams didn't really shake up too much. A lot of teams were still trying to stick together. In fact, and
it's not like there was that many great NA players out on the market at the time either.
I mean, still aren't. I mean, that's evident by the fact that he literally has 3 Europeans on his team.
But he got CCNC. So
he got CCNC.
CCNC did not exist before this.
He did not exist
technically. At least not a year ago.
Yeah,
like he wasn't this level, right?
He wasn't this level, and obviously, Misery was also on another team at the time because they thought they could ride it out. So I think in hindsight it was probably the correct thing to do.
Correct move, yeah.
Because it would have probably tainted his career the last season if he had tried to stick it out with like some tier 2 team. Like imagine if he had gone to Digital Chaos and like played together with like Mason and Abed or whatever. I'm not saying those are bad players by any means, but I think it would have just been a completely different thing for him. And
would have been. On the other hand, though, if he did do that, all right. Here's the thing. All right, here's the thing about imbalance, right? So basically, if you've ever followed my work or you know me, like I bring up the Blue Lord and Fester era more than anybody else in existence. And the reason because of that is because it was so fucking terrible. It was so tragically bad. But at the same time, there's one good thing about it, in the fact that it literally made MVP into a god. And the reason is because it was so fucking unfair for MVP, and he had injuries, or like he couldn't feel his hands and shit. Where it's like, Jesus Christ, you really are something else if you can like make this work. At the same time, I kind of wanted to see what would happen if PPD was put into like a hellhole and see if he could like dig himself out. Because that's actually a lot of fun. If you just want to see like one man versus everything,
right?
That's because that makes you a fucking legend. If you're able to do that, like that's like Jesus Christ, what the fuck are you, right? It's like Nico on Mouse Sports or like Kenny S on Titan before that. It's like Jesus Christ, you're a fucking god, right? Like it's pretty amazing in and of itself, even if you don't get the results. That's what I think.
Honestly, it would have been very interesting. I think it would have been very interesting. And
it's like Resolution at the last TI. Like, what the fuck is this guy? Like, he was supposed to be a caster. Now he's like carrying this Empire team the furthest it's ever gotten into a TI. Like, that's godlike, isn't it?
It was absolutely fantastic. Well, PPD, Optic Gaming, we luckily see them at one LAN event of the Summit. Though they haven't really qualified for anything else yet. That's the one thing.
I mean, NA is fucking crazy. Like, there's Complexity, there's Optic, then there's EG, and now there's fucking... Apparently, Immortals are trying to civilize the cavemen, too. It's like... Apparently, and DC did DC get into one recently? I forget what they did. But it's like there's
I don't think they did. I think
like
I
like
don't
they've
think
been close multiple times. So just the fact that they're close means they're eliminating one of these other three teams. Like it's fucking crazy right now in NA.
NA is absolutely insane. The funny thing is that everybody keeps destroying one another in like best of threes, right? Like we have
Yeah.
one day Dire absolutely crushing Complexity, then Complexity comes back and absolutely crushes Dire, then Complexity completely stomps Immortal to make them look like idiots, and then Complexity loses to Digital Chaos like idiots, and then vice versa. I don't know. It's absolutely crazy.
I
Yeah,
mean, it makes sense for the complexity being dire. I feel like Swindles has that special
oh,
quality with
dude,
him, where he's like,
there was a
listen, me and PPD are cool now, but I'm not gonna lose the fucking PPD.
there was a day when Complexity beat Evil Geniuses and immediately went on to play the Dire, and I couldn't stop telling everybody if Kyle now wins against PPD and AG on the same day, this is going to be like the best day of his life.
Yeah,
It
will be the best day of his
it
life.
would have been, but unfortunately they lost to the Dire.
Of course they did. PPD can't let that happen. Come on now, come on now. You can win, but not in that way. Not in that way.
But you know, I think if your Complexity, I think if Akali is still happy with it, because technically speaking, he's still doing better than
yeah,
Optic
so far. But
so far anyway.
But yeah, in the end, these are still online qualifiers. It's just like it's a bit of preseason, and I gotta say this: it's more fun this way than it is in the last tournament circuit. Because
Sure.
even though I don't watch all the games, I actually only watch like a few of them. It's like it makes it a lot more interesting for me.
I
at
think you
least.
already see like a lot of storylines here that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. I mean, the whole like there's so many rivalries in NA going on. You know, you see the SEA rivalry between Mineski and Fnatic as well. We've seen them clash like 5 times in the span of 3 weeks or something, and pretty much most of the time Mineski comes out on top. But you know, you can rapidly see that Fnatic is getting better and better with pretty much every series as well. Or well, it's Fnatic and it's still Envy, so they're also still getting worse and worse with every series.
Listen, it's always a pure 50-50 where you go with Eternal Envy. Fnatic should have known this going into that fucking deal. Like, your ceiling goes up, but your floor goes down. Like that's the Eternal Envy way.
You know, I've been talking to some friends and some of the casters as well regarding Fnatic, and some of them are like, you know what, I have no idea what the fuck they're picking. Like sometimes they'll just pick like the most random shit, carry Abaddon and that kind of stuff. I mean, which isn't, it's not that Dota hasn't seen a carry Abaddon, but it's just so weird at times.
And you know it's Eternal Envy.
Yes.
You know it's Eternal Envy, right?
Yes. They definitely have their own meta. They're definitely very weird picks. They're picking Visage mid almost regularly, and pretty much everybody has to ban it against them now. They just have their own shit, which is interesting, which makes Envy fun to watch. But at the same time, Mineski is definitely still the better team right now in SEA.
You know what's the great thing? Great thing about Eternal Envy is like, remember at the summit when he was at the old Cloud9 team, the one with no tail, and he was casting.
Yes.
I remember that famous quote: "When the
First
game is
blood
going
thing?
this bad."
Oh yeah.
Like he was casting, is like, when game is going this bad, I just want to create chaos, create so much chaos that no one understands Dota anymore. Because if I don't understand Dota and they don't understand Dota, that means he knows that he doesn't know if he can win or not. Whereas if we both understood Dota, he knows that he is going to win. So you have to like create this like weird fucking chaotic situation in order to like steal wins. Like that's Eternal Envy's entire career is summed up by this one quote that he said while casting. Like, what is this? Like, what a player! What a player!
Pretty much. It's when you see him play, he sometimes pulls out that crazy shit that I know a lot of people will be like, yeah, that's like Envy throw, Envy whatever. But at the end of the day, if it works, it works. Like he has done crazy shit in one game.
Yeah.
Turn
It
game
works like
around.
50% of the time. It's worth it.
All right. Is there anything else in the Dota docket? I guess we could talk about some of the teams. I mean, we've already talked about some of the regions, some of the teams. Secret though is also a team that's worth noting. They are currently crushing every team in Europe. They've only dropped 2 maps in all of the qualifiers thus far. 2 maps.
Yeah, which also reminds me, why are they why are they beating OG? Because I didn't watch those games.
Why are they beating OG? Well, Secret is just a better team right now. Like no questions asked. Like they are just so better. They're so much. They're clicking better as a team. It feels like the drafts are also just on point in comparison to OGs. It's not that OGs drafting bad or just playing bad. It's just that they're just not on par with Secret right now. Secret, and I tweeted this, and I'm sad that I can't find that tweet. But Secret, in my opinion, have 3 of the most flexible cores that you could ask for right now. Yeah, Secret still sort of pick all the comfort heroes for these three players, but they have such a dynamic trio of players. Like one game they started first picking Zeus and then Spirit Breaker, Doom, and then they finished that draft with a Meepo. That's just kind of thing that Secret I think is one of the few teams that can do that right now. I mean, because Fata and Ace have pretty much played every position and like every core position, and mid one has such a wide hero pool that they could just play everything.
Yeah. So I guess like going back to the Puppey Kuroki discussion, at this point Puppey now has like a similar like thing going on, I guess, in the sense that he has the choice to draft almost anything, according to you, because I haven't watched like all these games. But if he has the chance to draft everything, you're going to be able to see how deep his like drafting truly is then. Because this is like that's what separates PBD from a lot of great captains, is the fact that other captains can draft a lot of things, but because PBD got like somebody like Fear on his team, and like a few of these other guys, he was able to like convert the way they draft into always like winning drafts. So if what you're saying is true, then Puppey should be able to do the same thing if he wants to like prove he's still like an all-time great captain right now.
I think he is. I still think he is. I mean, at the same time, he's not really been challenged in Europe thus far. It's definitely, if you're crushing a team within 20 minutes, I feel like you can feel comfortable enough to pick something even crazier in the next game and still get away with it, because there's just so much confidence on your side and so much or lack of confidence on the other side that you feel determined that there's nothing that's going to make us lose this game. And nobody in Europe has even looked remotely strong enough to actually challenge them. I guess OG a little bit here and there. There was definitely a series which was close. The last one not so much. I think it was the start of their finals where OG even won the first game of the series or something.
Yeah. But that was like the very first qualifier, I think.
Not quite I mean, I think it was the first finals of any of those qualifiers.
Yeah, first finals, I guess. But I don't know. The timing is kind of weird.
It definitely still. I mean, at the same time, OG also took an extended break, right? They definitely took an extended break. They only started playing very recently, and again, not to take anything away from Secret, but they have been a lot of these teams are just not on a level, and nobody expected them to be on a level like Secret. I mean, I said this going into TI as well, that Secret came out of the qualifier pretty much uncontested because Europe is just overall very weak. Outside of Secret, OG, and Liquid. And right now, it doesn't seem like there is a fourth team that is like consistently establishing itself. Like you can see Mouse Sports, SFT, Kingwin, they're all competing, but they're all bad. So I don't know.
All right.
We'll see how strong Secret really is on land, but on paper and based on the results and performance thus far, I think they're really strong. For Starlighter, and I'm sure we're gonna go more in depth next week in our preview, but they are a top 4 contender for me right now.
All right. So I guess we'll go to the last region because we basically covered the rest.
Yeah, China.
Unless you know something about SA, but we're going to China.
No, I don't watch SA. Look, it's already difficult enough to follow 4
It's
regions.
really difficult to follow like 4 of these regions. I don't even follow one of them.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a break. It's way too much. It's 24/7 if you're literally following every region.
China also, I'm afraid I wasn't able to watch a lot. I'm mostly just following up with results, drafts, and a couple of replays. But I've also watched a couple of games. Vici Gaming look absolutely fine. The eHome from 2015 with C2I with Lanem and with Old Chicken and Old 11 whatever. That's pretty much huh?
Was that Ice on that one?
That was before Ice. So there was the one in TI5 and there was the one in TI6. But the one in TI5 that plays 6.
Yeah. I remember.
They just clicked. They were really strong. This is the new VG Gaming, basically. VG Gaming reminds me so much of that team. Basically, what they did was they kept the three core players, Lanem, Fenrir, 11, and then what they did was they basically replaced the 2 cores with Ori and got them Paparazzi. So now they have Ori and Paparazzi, 2 of the best core players in China right now, in my opinion, anyway. And it just works. They can just run everything they want. 11 is one of the best offlane. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of competition when it comes to offlanes in China. But 11 is one of the best offlanes in China, and Lanem, I don't know, the guy still got it? He still got it. I just casually tune into his game, and he's like playing Kanka, and then he just throws like a a Thorin without any setup. He just throws a Thorin and he hits it, and I'm like, all right, Lanham is back. And then in the entire game, he's just wrecking everybody with his Kunkka. And I don't know, he's still got it.
And Lanham was like one of those from the old DK days where like maybe one day he'll come back, and he has. Like I guess
honestly, pretty much all of the DK players still look really strong this day. I mean, I guess Burning's on a break, and MMY as well, but you know.
I mean, there's a reason that was like an all-star team, right? Like they were a legit all-star team at the time, and even now, like even though they've all split up and like retired and come back and all this shit, like they still show a class. It's like it's one of the all-time great teams. I still think that, even though they didn't win like a TI or anything.
It's actually super crazy because after they split, they all still went on to be super successful.
Yeah,
pretty much.
That's how good that team was. It's like it's actually very similar, I think, to the original Secrets, like the first three iterations. Like everybody that kept going in and coming out, like eventually all of them like became successful one way or another.
Yeah.
So it was a similar formula to that. All right, so Vici Gaming.
Yeah,
so Paparazzi.
LGD is currently choking in all the qualifiers, which sucks to them honestly because I think LGD is really strong LAN team. I think they're really strong on LAN. I mean, we see that every year at TI obviously, but even at non-TI tournaments they still perform on LAN. And but even before TI they showed that they sucked at every qualifier because the LAN events that they went to, I think it was MDL and. Was the other one? Was it Epicenter or Summit? One of those two. They only qualified because the actual qualified team, CDEC, couldn't get visas on time. So LGD went instead. But LGD themselves sucked in qualifiers in the previous season, and they currently do so as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, all right. Here's the funny thing though. It's like, yeah, they're definitely an online team. But I feel like there's one person that's very suspect in Vici, and that's where it's going to be Paparazzi. That part of the like how it's like I call DK one of the greatest of all time teams in Dota 2. Paparazzi is like one of the greatest of all time onliners in Dota 2. Like, do you think this? There's no way to prove it one way or the other. But if you had to choose one side, do you think he's going to perform at a LAN?
Well, the question is, was it truly him? Was it his team?
Was it all of them combined?
Was all of them combined, of course. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to watch. I want to say yes. I think that he can perform together with the rest of his team because he has three of the most experienced players in China right now with 11, Nanem, and Fenrir.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's difficult to call, but I hope that they do because it's been a while since we've seen a successful Vici Gaming squad. It's been a while since we've seen these players at the top as well, so would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, even though I make fun of him, I do think that getting Paparazzi was a good choice. I do think that was a good choice because just in terms of online form, he does have something, and as far as I know, he was pretty new to the scene. I don't know about his age, but I feel like with enough experience, he should eventually get over it. Whereas, like with the newbie thing, I don't think they'll ever get over the fact that they'll ever get over like the super hard like clutch pressure matches. I don't know if they'll ever do that with this 5.
One would hope so because those are nice players, like really cool.
Those are really good players.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's one more team I want to talk about. That
all right. Hit me.
It's Eclipse. Eclipse is the one that Shadow, the former Wings Gaming player, is in. Shadow was rumored to be actually joining Secret going into the season, but eventually it didn't work out. But he's currently playing with pretty much the former CDEC squad, and they also just qualified for Perfect World Masters, and they look once again very, very promising. It's the word promising itself is already starting to sound really repetitive and boring in my head because I keep saying it, especially when it comes to these players. I've watched a couple of these players for like a long time now, and they keep disappointing me. For example, they lose in like even open qualifiers. But I hope that attending this LAN is gonna, and this is one of the teams to look out for in my opinion in this season. I hope that with this LAN attendance they can sort of like turn it around and start becoming like a proper team because last season again they would have actually qualified for LAN last season. They just had visas. They just didn't have visas. So this is a bit of a bummer. But yeah, this is one of the teams to look out. And probably the most promising team out of the Wings Gaming splits.
Yeah, the
I don't
Civil
think.
War.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else that was the Civil War. I don't think anybody else actually has a proper team worth noting. I can't think of one.
Did any of the Wings teams get back into Ace or none of them?
I don't think any of them got back into Ace.
Okay, yeah, so they're also in exile. Luckily
Basically.
for them, there's like a bunch of qualifiers now, so
Yeah,
it's
and
it's not as big of a deal. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty fucking annoying.
it's annoying, especially there's like DPL, which is pretty much the biggest running league in China right now.
Yeah, that's
Where you
super
get
annoying.
where you get a chance to play pretty much against anybody else in China, and that's like one of the big ones. But like I said, there's what over 20 qualifiers in the season where they can play their hearts out.
Yeah,
It just sucks that they also can't scrim against the other teams. That's just
Yeah,
the
that's
best part.
super annoying too. And it's not like any. Like, could you imagine these Wings players be like, "Yeah, we fucking hate each other, but let's scrim." Like, I don't know if I don't know how liable that is. I will.
They might.
They might do it just because out of desperation. But at that point, it's like, why didn't you guys just stick together? Like,
Yeah.
come on, Wings. You were the ones. You were Ice Frog's chosen ones.
Look, we've gotten our Koreans back together. I'm sure somebody can reunite Wings. I'm sure it's gonna happen.
Nobody's gonna be able to fucking reunite the Wings, man. You ever hear the how quote? My favorite quote, by the way, of any esport player: "The deeper the love, the deeper the hate." Like,
Let's
man,
that's pretty deep.
that's some philosophical shit right there.
Speaking of
But
how, did you see that both him and Moo are transitioning into PUBG?
yeah, that's some bullshit. Come on now, come on now.
Moo even plays first at some PUBG tournament in China.
I can't believe this bullshit. Like these fucking two, man. These two. Jesus
No.
Christ.
You know, if you've got enough money, at some point you just start goofing around and, you know.
Yeah, I will say
shit.
there's one great thing about this Eclipse team is that Shiki is no longer in it. I don't know how Shiki like even got shouted to begin with, but thank God he's gone. Thank God he is gone, and we will likely never have to see him again.
Well, that is also why this team looks promising.
Yes, indeed, they got rid of the word of like the most like
Hey.
trash player of all the amongst the pro players' decisions. And pro players love other pro players no matter how bad they become. So that's saying something.
He's a pretty good Lena player. I'll give him
Pretty
that.
good. Yeah.
Apparently enough to, make the TI finals.
Yeah. Thank God for Q. Like that's how you know Q is going to be like an all-time great leader. Is he got Shiki into a TI finals. Like that's how you know Q is going to be fucking great.
Anyway, that is pretty much it for our Dota portion of the show as well. Again, not a lot of topics this week. We're gonna do a proper preview of the Starlighter minor, the first minor of the season next week. Doing a bit in depth about the teams and matchups. Hopefully, we'll know the groups by then as well, so that we can talk or the actual matchups, so we can talk about those as well. But for now, let's hop into CS:GO and the ELEAGUE Major. Today, ELEAGUE announced that they are gonna, or was it actually ELEAGUE that announced it? I think it was them.
It was E-League announcing
Yeah.
it. Like just a bunch of people got like a press notification.
Yeah, they are gonna host the first major in 2018 in Boston.
Yeah.
Can't you CS:GO guys just look for your own cities to host majors in, please?
Listen,
You
man.
don't
like,
see me going to Cologne hosting a Dota major. I wish there was a Dota major.
I'll be legit. I actually think Dota 2 should go to Cologne. Like I think Dota 2, like they should start with this Hamburg, and go to Cologne. I think Cologne's a better esports city. I think.
ESL definitely won't do it. They won't shit on their own Frankfurt, so Cologne.
Yeah, they won't do it, but I think they should do it. It's their choice, but like I understand why they split up the cities, but I definitely think both of them, Dota 2 and CS:GO, should be in Cologne, and Cologne should like become the European capital of esports.
I wish it would.
Like I think that's a great choice. In the same sense, I actually think ELEAGUE going to Boston after Dota 2 did it is a good choice also. And ELEAGUE themselves have always been great, so I have no problem with this major.
I think there was a lot of support from the Boston, like, not government, but the Boston, whatever it's called.
The Boston locals.
Yeah, basically, yeah. There was a lot of support in that regarding the Dota major,
Okay,
if I recall
all right.
correctly. And I don't know. I mean, I was at the Boston major. I thought it was a cool major. The venue was nice. It was a bit small, of course, but still pretty cool. and the city itself was kind of nice as well. I'm just questioning if January in Boston might not be too cold.
Yeah.
That
Wasn't it really cold there? And was it December
It
when you
was
guys went?
December. It was freezing. It was freezing.
Yeah, I imagine it was fucking freezing. Yeah, so that's another thing. I guess speaking of like the CS:GO Dota 2 crossover, CS:GO should totally steal the TI format. Not like the tournament itself, but just like the format for the majors.
100%.
Like that's an amazing format. Just like Dota 2, I guess, is like opening a circuit again. That's actually sort of funny how that worked. If you think about it, because like Dota 2 only introduced the major system after CS:GO did it.
Right, and then we
and then they realized, this isn't working, and they had to go back to the open circuit.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to call right now because we're still at the very beginning of the season, of course. But I think in Dota right now, the season or the way the competitive circuit works is pretty much ideal for the Dota 2 scene. I think this encourages pretty much or empowers all the the third party events. Though I have been told that this is, and I'm not sure how reliable that information is, but the system is subject to change, and perhaps some next season we might see changes where there's going to be established major hosts, basically. So, organizers that have proven themselves this season, basically, that get to host like the official majors. Because I don't think it's sustainable to run X amount of majors every season. I don't think that's sustainable. I think there has to be some sort of limit. Not necessarily 3 or 4, but maybe like 8 or 6 or whatever.
I think if you do that, you have to leave a certain number of them open. And what I mean by that is like, let's say there's 6. Like, here's what I'd do, right? I'd say ESL Cologne, you get 1. Perfect World, you get 1 because you keep paying me billions of dollars. PGL, you get 1.
Plus we don't know anybody else in China anyway, so let's just go on with you guys.
Yeah. And then after that, it's a toss-up. I personally pick MLG because I like them the most, but obviously MLG hasn't done them in a long time. So if you just want to go by experience, I feel Star Ladder or Epicenter should deserve one. One of them.
Probably.
And then after that, for the last 2, it's like you give it more of like an experimental feel. Like if like if you feel like a tournament organizer has proven that they're good enough to do it, like I forget which org is doing it in SEA, but I feel like they've been doing a good job recently.
The Mineski events team.
Yeah, the Mineski events, even though it's like obvious like conflict of interest, but apparently nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
On that side, but I think like they every event I've seen them do has been pretty good. So I'd probably let them have a major.
They pretty much run the best events in Southeast Asia. There was actually, it's pretty funny. We talked about this on a previous show, the Major All-Stars fiasco, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, wait, was it?
Yeah, it was the last
year.
year.
No, but I'm trying to think. There was one event, I'm not actually sure if it was the Major All-Stars event. There was one event in SEA where the Mineski events team pretty much did everything for them. Like they were just hired basically, and they just ran everything. But it was officially, this is our production. I'm not sure if it was Major All-Stars. There was something else. I feel like it was something else.
That's pretty funny.
It was a while ago. But they're definitely like a really experienced team. There have been a bunch of not to go too much off topic, but there have been a bunch of sort of like public complaints about some staff members like prioritizing or messing up and like prioritizing friends and stuff over, for example, like autograph sessions. Like these guys are cutting in line, but whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying, but it's like.
But yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how to put that one, because I don't think about that much.
No, of course.
I'd never ask for an autograph.
No, but like in general, their events are usually well run, and the production is usually on point as well. So,
yeah. Okay.
And they also run these very cool sort of like fan catered events where they have either like really small LAN events where they like DreamHack-esque, where you can basically watch behind your favorite team. You're just standing behind your favorite team and just watching them play a tournament. Or what they're doing now is the All-Stars event. So basically they're inviting a couple of pro players down there, they're inviting a couple of casters down there, and they're just going to run like an All-Stars tournament.
Which, like the Dyer's going down there, and then 3 other teams, I think?
I think so, yeah. And then I think just individual players as well.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
I think that's pretty cool. Even though it's not part of the major minor circuit, I think it's just a really cool thing for local fans, of course. And also, I think it's good publicity for pretty much every team that's going there, because Southeast Asia makes up a lot of the audience in Dota. That is absolutely insane. I'm pretty sure actually if I checked our audience, that like 20% Southeast Asia easily. It's and it's even worse for other websites. I know for Grocer Gamers when I worked there was 40% just Southeast Asia or something. Absolutely
That's not
insane.
surprising to me. It feels very much like Dota country.
Yeah.
So and they honestly do have like a lot of great players there. So even though like I don't think they have like that many like championship contending teams most of the time. Like there's been
The thing
MVP,
is,
and then before that, or the like every iteration of Orange has been pretty great. But it's like, but there's always been like a limit to them, right?
yeah, the thing is about that though is that yeah, they don't have like these like their own teams that make it, and even like the current Mineski team, even though current Mineski is a Filipino organization, I think
Yeah.
only one of the players is actually Filipino.
Mhm.
But even then, like they basically
They're huge fans of
they're,
everybody.
yeah, exactly. They're huge fans of everybody. When Navi was playing at the Manila Major, the crowd went absolutely nuts. Almost worse or almost better than when Mineski went onto stage. Right? Navi is
Yeah.
such a huge team. Dota is such a huge game. When I went, I was there. When I went to when I went to Starbucks with my staff or with my press badge around me, I'm like, oh yeah, you're here for the major. Who are you rooting for? And they're like, the baristas wouldn't know who was playing and how things were going, and that was
Yeah.
absolutely crazy.
That's pretty cool. Like some C guy, I don't even know him, but he basically is like, yeah, it's true. Where because I was basically like comparing how annoying I thought fans around the world were. I was like, yeah, I actually think C fans of Dota aren't bad. Like they cheer for everybody equally, and then like this random C guy's like, that's only because our teams aren't that great. If we had a truly great team, we'd be shitting on every other team. Like, huh,
Maybe,
good point.
maybe,
Maybe that would happen.
there was definitely
But-
an incident, sort of an incident where at the Manila Major, Mineski was also there actually, or was it ESL One Manila? Oh, at one of the events, Mineski was playing. Actually, might have been both. And they were trying to sort of, I mean, obviously it doesn't do much in Dota because we have soundproof booth, but they would like trying to like give away certain smoke gangs, for example. I guess actually in Dota it does kind of work because as long as you like if you're cheering, something's going down. So in that
Yeah.
sense, it does work. But yeah, I don't know. I still think the Manila crowd was one of the best ones and one of the most like fair ones as well. Just
Yeah.
in terms of like cheering
like-
for everybody.
All right, so here's where I would do if I was like running the CS:GO circuit. Like, oh yeah, by the way, I actually think DreamHack should probably get a major soon. Like if
CS?
the theoretical circuit I had.
In CS.
No, it's
Oh, in
CS:GO.
Dota.
Like in Dota 2, I meant.
Oh yeah, I mean they have a major already.
They already have a major, but I'm like in that theoretical
Oh,
one
right,
where like it's
right.
limited. I think they probably deserve one by this point, but in CS:GO they're basically exiled. Like Valve pretends they don't exist or whatever.
It sucks honestly because Malmo Masters is pretty much one of my favorite events in CS.
Yeah,
I think it's probably ESL Cologne, ELEAGUE,
Yeah.
and then Malmo.
yeah, and then I actually think DreamHack's actually pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand what like I think they're at least as good as ESL
Yeah,
in generally speaking, but for whatever reason, CS:GO Valve isn't interested in them. But if I was like constructing a Dota 2 circuit with like specific majors, here's what I do is like I at this point I think you have to leave TI in Seattle. There's like too much history there for not to be in Seattle.
Yeah.
Even though I kind of I do kind of want it to be like a traveling one, but I guess it's too late for that.
Also, basically similar to Worlds.
Yeah, similar to Worlds, where like the TI one is in Europe, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that
like
was
TI1
that was mostly out of marketing purposes.
Yeah, that was out of marketing purposes, but like, what if it was like, because I feel like because Dota 2's like biggest audiences is in like SEA or China, I'd like it for it to be one of those ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
But
It-
even though like the times are super shitty for me, but whatever. but yeah, so the TI is in Seattle, but then beyond that, I feel like you have to have like I still think there should be one in ESL Cologne. Just I don't understand why, but whatever. If they don't have that there, they should definitely have one in Manila every year.
For sure.
One of the majors. I think Kiev at this point deserves one.
100%.
Whether it's Star Ladder or
100%.
Epicenter, I don't
100%.
really care. And then I actually think this is like really old, but I actually think the old MLG in Columbus was really great.
I think it had a couple of issues on the organizational side of things. I mean, as a viewer, it was great experience, but if I recall correctly, there were a couple of issues on site. I'm not 100% sure though. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Those have sort of established themselves as sort of like the capitals of Dota, right? We have Kiev, we have Manila, we have maybe something in Germany. We've had Frankfurt, a couple of the most iconic ones in
Yeah.
Germany.
Then there's one in China, but like I've never like really associated like a specific city in China.
That's the issue because they keep hosting their events in different cities as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't even tell you which city MDL is hosting their events in because it's never been part of their broadcast as well. They've never made it part of their broadcast as well, which I think is actually a huge mistake. But they never sort of like say, oh well, this is MDL Shanghai or whatever. There's this MDL whatever. No, it's just MDL. And the same, or maybe even incorporate in some sort of like video, just having like the Shanghai skyline or whatever as part of the intro or whatever. Just never really happened. But like I said, I definitely don't associate anything in China with Dota.
With like a specific like tournament, right?
Not really.
It's kind of weird.
I think most of the big ones have been in Shanghai, and I know there's going to be a major in Shanghai in this season, but I legitimately can't tell you which tournament.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
that's
probably
the
where...
Shanghai major, right? But that's basically it. I cannot even tell you what the venue was for the Shanghai major. I can tell you the venue of every other major, but not the Shanghai one.
The one that had the most glue. That's how you'll find out. But yeah, the reason you want like, and then for the rest of like the majors, they could be more like experimental, like I said. But the reason you want it that way is because, like for fans at least in the area, they can plan their trip like a year in advance or whatever it is. Just if they want to go to this like Dota 2 thing. So I feel like, and it builds like a certain like type of history, where like you start remembering these things. Where like even like casuals start remembering. Oh, I remember that finals in this stadium like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Like I feel like that's a great thing to put into like the sphere of consciousness, I guess, if you want to call it that. Where like I think like every soccer's final in Britain is put in like the Wembley Stadium or something.
Yeah.
Or like in the NBA finals, it's always like Game 7. It's always like one of the home courts, right? So there's always like a certain like history involved.
See, that's it's a little bit funny because as you said that, I try to remember like the past events, and I think it's easier for me, for example, to remember all the majors because they're all distinct memories because they have all been in different stadiums and different cities, whereas try to discern memories between TI6, TI7, and TI5, which is everything has been in the same stadium, everything has been in the same city. So for me, a lot of those memories blur a little bit, and you'll notice that when you talk to casters as well, or to players even, when you talk about those different events, most of the time the way they are able to distinguish between those events are obviously with the results, but everything surrounding it was like, oh well, at that event we're at a different hotel. That's literally like the way they distinguish between those events, and in that sense, I definitely agree with you. If we had a traveling TI, I think that would, for the viewers, I think it would just create better memories and create like long lasting memories in that sense.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not exactly sure if that's the best choice or not. Like, because I feel like there is some like level of historical precedent there. Like it's always been Seattle, right?
Right.
So, like I said, it's a give and take. It's just a choice one way or the other.
But this next year, Key Arena is going to be under construction, so they pretty much cannot have TI at Key Arena again.
They can go back to the other place. Like, was it
Ben Arroyo Hall? Yeah.
Yeah. It was still a good stadium.
It was really good, but at the same time, I think, like, even though a lot of people want to go back to a venue like that, because it was like, oh, there's a great atmosphere and was nostalgic and whatnot, I think it would be a disservice to a lot of fans. Like at TI, people are already struggling to get tickets for the event, and there's so many fans across the entire world that want to go there. Like at TI, I've seen pretty much half of the crowd was just Asian. I'm pretty sure pretty much half the crowd was either Asian or like specifically Chinese even. And I think it would be a huge disservice to a lot of those fans that would be willing to invest that money into those trips to have it in such a small venue.
Yeah, because it's not even just like the Dota 2 hardcore fans that are going. It's like everybody.
Exactly.
Like even just the people who play the game, but like don't even follow the game, like go there because it's like a giant festival rather than a true like hardcore esports tournament. Like it's both. It's a pretty rare event in that sense. So I can see what you mean. Like you can't really go back just because of the pure seating arrangements. Like where would you put it then?
Well, a difficult call to make, because I honestly think, and I'm sure this is never going to happen, but I wish Valve, 2 years, 3 years ago, they had started building their own esports arena in Seattle, and they would just host their own event there, like TI, just every year there. It's not economically speaking, it's not feasible, because you're only ever going to use it for esports events, obviously. But I feel like there definitely needs to be some sort of esports venue, because a lot of the venues that people use for esports events are just not suited for esports events. That's why I'm very excited about the Blizzard Arena, by the way, for the Overwatch League.
Have you been there? I haven't been there.
I've not been there, but I assume, or I hope that that's going to be great, or I hope, because I think esports has very specific needs and very specific sort of things that you want to do that you cannot do in traditional like stadiums, because like the seating arrangement is made for the field, right, or for whatever, or for the stage, but it's not made for like an esports audience. And a lot of times the infrastructure is not there when it comes to internet and Wi-Fi coverage, a lot of things. But in terms of just raw, like if I just had to pick a location, like a city, without like thinking of a venue, it'd probably be in Europe, to be honest. Because I think as great as NA may be in terms of, or as many Dota fans there may be in NA, I think the audience in Europe and CS is just so much bigger and so much more passionate that I would love if it was somewhere here in Europe.
I'd like it to be in Europe, but I also wouldn't mind it if it was in like SEA.
I wouldn't mind it either. SEA would be a great choice. It definitely would have a lot of SEA fans, but I think it would alienate the Western audience too much if you did that.
Yeah, might be that too. Like,
yeah.
In that case, actually, I don't know the time conversions for Europe to SEA or Europe to China.
Basically, it's 6 hours from now. So 6 hours from now is China.
Yeah, it's not that bad then. Like, it's not like Europe isn't that bad for America. It's just, here's the thing about NA esports fans I found is like they're really like they're like really lazy, I guess. Yeah. It's not even like a shot at them. It's just how it is. They're like, they don't go out of their way to like watch a VOD, or they don't go out of their way to wake up a little bit earlier to watch like a game. They'll be like, "Oh, this is bullshit. Why isn't it on my time?" But you don't hear that from like Europeans, or actually, I don't know about the SEA Chinese people because I don't speak their language. But I just don't usually hear that from the Europeans as often until League, anyway.
I think in Dota it's definitely more. I think in Dota you'll definitely notice it's definitely more hardcore. Like the core audience will definitely try to accommodate their schedule as much as possible, pretty much across most regions, as far as I can tell, anyway. But I definitely think you're right in a sense, and I think that's why one of the reasons why you, if you're Valve, you don't want to host like TI in Asia, because a lot of the people in Asia already know Dota. They already play Dota. Yeah, it's the biggest market, but probably because it is your biggest market, you don't want to have it there. Because TI, as much as it is for the teams and for the community, it's also a marketing tool still, right?
Yeah, in that case, I guess Europe is a pretty good choice.
It's either Europe or probably will stay in America, because America is such a large untapped market, because, NA is still very much about League of Legends in that sense. So having it in maybe Los Angeles, San Francisco, keeping it West Coast for Valve themselves, because they obviously...
they have a West Coast office?
Yeah, in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's in Seattle's like on West Coast.
I mean, yeah.
Is it?
Well, it is. Well, I mean, it is.
Like,
it's your time zone, dude.
I have no clue about the geography of America, so I'm just asking.
It's the Northwest. It's your time zone. It's pretty much.
Is it?
Yeah, it's your time zone.
I didn't know that. No, I don't pay attention to these things.
It is your time zone.
Okay, so I guess that's feasible then.
Yeah, so having it maybe like San Francisco, Los Angeles, which by the way are also pretty much like NA capitals for esports in general, would probably be fitting. Because while I could go East Coast, I don't know. For me, East Coast and esports is just very weird. Like, yeah, they have the Boston Major in CS:GO now, but and yeah, we have the Boston Major in Dota now. But to me, East Coast and esports is just not a big thing.
I think it's a bit too early, but if I think Las Vegas would be a decent choice, but I think it might be a bit too early for Dota.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beyond that, I guess you're right. I think LA or San Francisco are like the normal ones.
There was a cool event in LA. The D2L.
D2L.
D2L was there for a couple of years ago. That was pretty good. It just, again, because of the venues, because they used the casino like show floor or whatever, they didn't have the proper, like they ran into a lot of issues, because those venues are just not made for like esports events.
For esports, yeah, it's very different.
Or for big crowds, for that matter, at all, right? Unless you go to like a specific stadium.
Maybe they should try to rent out one of these Blizzard-made stadiums.
That would be hilarious. I doubt that's gonna happen though.
Blizzard will not allow that.
Not sure Blizzard and Valve are in best terms. Actually, you know what? And this is, this is the gossip portion of the podcast now. But I've been told that a bunch of like Valve employees have actually been poached by Blizzard. So a lot of people that used to work for Valve and even on Dota are currently working at Blizzard.
But why?
I don't know.
All right. Okay, so actually, I don't know about the internal politics of Blizzard, but I will say that there's something funny about the way they run things. Like, it's not very it's very, like, I think I phrased it as basically too late, overcompensated later or something. Like, that's basically been my entire Blizzard esports experience. You're a bit too late on that, and then you overcompensated too much for it later. Like, that's kind of how they've gone down that path.
I mean, I'm not sure if you followed it, but in the past 2 years, they've been aggressively hiring for their esports section because they didn't have an esports division for like the longest time, even though they ran pretty much the most successful esport until, 2009 or something.
They didn't run that. That was Korea.
I'm saying is they were like the developer of the most successful esport.
Yeah, and they did nothing to do with it.
Exactly, they did nothing, and then only now they just said, you know what? Let's just hire like an dedicated esport division. Maybe that's gonna work out.
Did I tell you I went to the Blizzard headquarters once?
Oh no! When did you do that?
Yeah, basically there was a summit for StarCraft LOTV, the last expansion, and like I got an invite there. I've been getting invites subsequently since, but I haven't gone since that first one.
Wow. Because
there's been, I think I'm still under NDA, but I don't really, I'm not exactly sure how much we're supposed to talk about it. But basically, like there's like this conversation that basically made me lose all hope. I'm not exactly sure. It was with David Kim, so he's gone. So maybe there's a little bit of hope there, but. Basically, like when I went to the esports division, it was actually incredibly small, and it was split. It was like a handful of people, but it was split up among like all of their esports games, and that they include everything under there. So it's like Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, Heroes of the Storm, and StarCraft. Wait, so
when was that? 2 years ago?
That was like 2 years ago. So so like if you just look at it that way, I actually feel like they're already overworked. So I'm not surprised they've been hiring like crazy, but even then, like there aren't that many good people to hire. Like the only guy I know of that I think for sure is great that they've hired, at least on some level basis, are like Monte Cristo, Doa, and the Alchemist. Like those are like the three guys I know of.
The thing is, and I agree with you. You know, it's difficult. I mean, to really know who's like the right fit for you, right? But I mean, hiring in the first place, I think, is already a great step. And if you hire like maybe inexperienced people or people that aren't as good yet, you can still mold them into those people that you want them to be, right? Worst case scenario, you just rehire. I think just having that first step of hiring aggressively in the first place was something that was a couple of years way too late. But as it stands right now, they have like a huge esports division. They have a dedicated esports division for Europe. They're still hiring very aggressively. They're hiring talent now. They had this huge like casting shout for like their on camera talent. I think they're at least doing something. Whether or not those people are going to be very capable, we'll see. It's always funny though that it's a classic. Oh, you need X amount of experience, but well, how are you supposed to have X amount of experience in esport? Like
here's the funny thing. Like this keeps happening where like I don't look into it, but apparently like a bunch of other esports people like I follow, they're like, who the fuck are all these people on LinkedIn with all these like high resumes? Like, yeah, I have esports experience going back a decade. Like, we don't even know who you are. Like, who? Apparently, there's a bunch of those people, and then there's the other people who actually do have it, but are trash at what they did. Like the CGS guys, some don't keep getting jobs. Like, so it's slim pickings out there. It's slim pickings.
It really is, and I guess now is the time for people, maybe even like us, but other people to step up.
Oh, hell no. I'm never working for Blizzard.
just in general. Genius to step up and prove themselves. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know, Overwatch in general, and I know we keep talking about Blizzard and Overwatch, but the Overwatch League in general is something that, I don't know, I'm so curious how that's going to work out, because either way, if it's going to be successful... It's
so new, right?
Exactly, it's so new, but either way, if it's going to be successful or not, I'm going to have a blast watching it, I'm sure. It has already provided me with so many laughs, Dallas fuel, I'm sure there's going to be much more. Obviously, I want it to succeed because I think it is a very important step for esports in general. Because
I
of
actually
this,
I mean, I actually wanted to succeed too, but here's the weird thing about fans of other games is like they're kind of like a lot of them are kind of like vengeful or spiteful,
yeah, yeah.
and like they don't really see the big picture. Like, man, fuck this new esport, but it's like it's not really hurting you.
You know, every time I tweet about Overwatch League, like I get at least one tweet that's really negative about Overwatch League. Like not in,
Like it's
not
gonna die.
not even not
Like,
even
it's
not
always
even
that.
not even in a not even in a I just don't like the direction Blizzard is taking it, but more in a this is never gonna work out. Well, this just sucks. Like Overwatch League, stupid idea. I mean, I get that. I get the criticism in general, but I think every esports fan should want this Overwatch League to succeed because it just helps the entire scene, really.
Yeah. But I mean, like, just the people who are invested in it, like, half of them, like, make me suspicious. So, like, because half of them are completely new to the game. So I was like, I'm not exactly sure. And then, like, there's NRG who's like, I'll give credit where credit's due. NRG is a trash team, but Jesus Christ, can they sell people? Like, how do they keep getting so much money?
Yeah, that's actually really crazy. That's really crazy.
Like that guy's like that guy's legitimately good at his job. Whoever the fuck is getting all that money, like that guy's legitimately good at his job. But
To be fair though,
Yeah.
that's something I keep wondering in esports. Like I keep seeing people that like either get funding or get jobs, even though I think of them as completely incompetent in like certain areas.
Azubu.
They keep doing it. Or,
Yeah, they
or
keep getting away
some
with it.
dude that has been working for or with Azubu for years now keeps getting money
Yeah,
for some reason. I have no idea how. That's absolutely crazy.
it's a complete mystery. But let this be a lesson to everybody out there. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are at your job. Somebody out there will get you some money.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
that is the beauty of esports. You know, somebody
Yeah.
will pay you for the shit that you do. You just have to get there first.
Yep.
I think
Right.
this is a very good notion to end this podcast on.
All right.
You know, a bit of esports advice from us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Steven, for joining me
Yep.
once again. Do you want to shout out anything? Maybe your AMA. When's your AMA again?
Oh, my AMA is on Discord. I have no clue how you're supposed to get to it unless you like pay Patreon.
No, but yeah,
But-
when does it start? Is it already on?
It's already on.
Damn
So
it.
basically,
All right, probably
But
probably gonna be late until I upload this video. It's probably gonna be too late for everybody.
yeah. But here's the thing, though. I'm basically doing it weekly. So
Oh,
just
alright.
every Thursday, if you show up in the Discord, you can ask me anything.
Alright.
Beyond that, I will say this. And Jaedong is playing in Brood War next week on like Monday night or something my time. I'm not exactly sure what it is for any other time. But this guy's legitimately one of the all-time great players of
Yes.
any game. A true legend in every aspect, and basically he's straight up like his body is straight up dying. So this will likely be one of his like last games you'll ever see him play professionally. So you'll probably want to see it. I don't know if you want to see it live or on the VOD, but this guy's a legitimate legend, so he's gonna go out like he's probably gonna go out fucking crazy.
Hopefully.
Is
Hopefully,
my
anyway.
is my guess.
Yeah.
Even if like he doesn't, like it's still a huge like event. I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna tune in. I don't know. Jaedong it's one of those him, you know, Faker, Flash.
Flash.
Those are the kind of names that transcend the game. You know.
Yeah, and then I wrote a preview, but basically the thing about the reason I consider like Flash the all-time greatest player, like of any esport, is the fact that Jaedong existed. Because if Flash did not exist, Jaedong would easily be the greatest player to ever touch Brood War. But Flash like killed him, so literally you have like this game where like the two greatest of all time had to go head to head for a long period of time. So that's why like they're both considered like great, the two greatest legends of that particular game. So that's why so if that has any interest, you should probably watch that.
That's a very good shout. A very good shout. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope we'll definitely be back. No, I'm 100% making this promise. We're gonna be back. Gonna do a Starlighter preview and hopefully a E-League preview as well. Look out for that. And yeah, we'll 100% be back next week. Though I know just making this promise is already jinxing this. Whatever. See you guys next week.
All right, later.